Well, I want to put this out because a lot of times people are focusing in on Russia Today and things like that, or even the alternative media, that the Russian government is our friend. And so, like, they're putting it out like as that, and they are not our friend. Actually, their strategy is divide and conquer. I just want to put this out here because some of the stuff, just to review some things and kind of link some things together briefly, and some of the other work I did on things before on YouTube. Igor Panarin, he's a professor, I think he's a PhD also, political scientist. He's best known, and this is right from Wikipedia, but he says this every damn year. He almost sounds like one of some of the pastors out there predicting doom and gloom and selling $95 DVDs. But he's a Russian professor and political scientist. He's best known for his hypothesis of a possible disintegration of the USA into 6 parts in 2010. And he was talking about that in 2008, 2009, in the middle of basically 2008, I think September 28th or 29th was the middle of the financial crisis. He was talking about it at that time, and he was predicting the future in 2010 that the USA would just literally disintegrate. But basically, I want to tell you what it is. It's their hope, and by them pushing these negative thoughts into your head, it works in their favor. He's every year he's pumping out the same old garbage. You know, one of these days we're going to come into a critical problem, and these Russian guys that are pushing all this garbage are actually going to help divide up America, and it's not going to be for our benefit. It's going to be to their benefit. So I want to say this, as Americans, we stick together, I know there's been a lot of crises and things that have been going on, but there's a lot of games going on to set people against each other. So I want to put this out on Thanksgiving here on 2014 because I think it's an important message. Despite all the garbage that goes on in the United States, especially if we stick together, we can resolve things pretty well. We can. Now, recently, I'm just going to put out here, there was this Leonid Fendon, whatever, vice president of Russian oil giant Lukoil, said the shale oil boom in the United States is on par with the dot-com boom. The strong players will remain, the weak ones will vanish. Basically, he's telling us that the oil industry in the United States is going to be finished and the Russian oil industry is going to continue. This is what they hope. And, you see, actually today, oil went down to below $69 a barrel on the WTI. Pretty interesting. But, that is also for the American consumer, not for this consumer because I'm invested in oil leverage still, but for the average American consumer. And actually, I think this is good because I don't care if it means me taking a hit. I'd rather see the Americans in general do well because what it means, they have more money in their pockets because it's going to cost them less for this winter time for heating oil and also to drive their cars to work and whatever they have to do. I don't think this is going to continue, though. I doubt it's going to continue. This trend is actually now below the cost of production of oil, but that's not the subject of this this dissertation, if you want to call it that. I just want to point out, though, actually in Russia, I'm going to make the claim, or that in Russia, if you want to actually say one country is probably more racist against blacks than anywhere on its earth, it may be Russia. May take this top spot. If they're not the top spot, they're probably one of the top spots. The Metis Foundation estimates there are about 40,000 African Americans in Russia, which is less than 0.03% of the population. And actually, what's happened is, after the collapse of the Soviet Union, racism and xenophobic sentiments have increased in the modern Russian state, particularly due to mass immigration and falling birth rates among Slavic Russians. Afro-Russians are subjected to threats and violence on part of ultra-nationalists and white power skinheads. It's actually worse there than probably anywhere. So, but I'm not gonna go over and say that everything is perfect everywhere in the world. But I'm just telling you that when Russia Today, the media outlet from the Kremlin, is constantly fanning the flames of racial tension in the United States, they have an agenda to do so. It's called divide and conquer. And to hell with them. I got to tell you that right now. To hell with them. And to hell with this guy, Leonid Fendin, because he's actually telling us he's jumping for joy that he's hoping that our oil industry collapses under these low prices. Well, I'm going to tell you right now what I really think is going on with these low oil prices. It's a deliberate game. You're not going to see anything sustain this low for extremely long. Just count it as a blessing. It'll be a little less money to fill up your car, a little bit less money to heat your home in the wintertime if you got to buy fuel oil, or even if you got to buy kerosene or whatever you got to do. So, just count it as a blessing because it's going to be a little less money out of your pocket. So, but, they're jumping for joy. They want things to go wrong here in the United States, and that's part of their game. Now, I also want to put out here that if you're actually looking at the countries where slavery exists the most, or indentured servants, probably India is number one. There's actually a couple of African countries where it's even more acute than the rest of the world, but India is actually the number one slave area. Mongolia and Russia is way up there. Now, in this chart, it's a little bit misleading. It is a lot misleading in some ways, and I actually put a video out on this stuff before. It didn't get a lot of attention, but I just put it out there point blank, for crying out loud. I mean, I don't know why some of the stupidest stuff gets a lot of attention, and sometimes the things that are most important don't. But that's just how it is. But this chart is a little bit misleading. I know Russia. Now, actually, in Russia, what they have is what they call is white slavery. What they'll use is the males for construction. They'll send them out to different work projects and things like that. There's actually a lot of problems with them selling children into sex slavery, and also there's a lot of sex slavery with the women, and there's even sex slavery with the males in the military in Russia, believe it or not. And that was right off the Russian network news media, not from the Western. It was actually from I put a video out on that. People don't want to believe it. They think it's Western propaganda. And I says it's such a problem in the military in Russia that they even have males being sold for sex. I mean, it's slavery, believe it or not. Enforced prostitution. There's a lot of garbage going on over there. I don't want to criticize the Russian people. What I'm telling you is the Russian government, do not trust it. And Russia Today, the news network of Russia Today, RT, is actually worst. Now, I also want to point out, though, even though that chart looked like the United States is all la-la land for like slavery, whatever it is, and maybe it is in the formal sense, but private prisons, the more Americans they put behind bars, the more money they make. I put this video out. This is from me. You see how many hits I got on this? 411 hits. It's been out for well over a year. And I put this subject out in different videos in different ways, but here I just put it out there point blank, and I guess maybe it's known or what, but in the United States, there's more people incarcerated per capita than anywhere in the world. So maybe that chart looks like Russia doesn't have as much slavery, but in the United States, they got slavery in a different way. It's freaking screwed up in another way. And then you got yo-yos like this Reverend Jesse Jackson goes on Russia Today, and you see Ferguson Fury, and he speaks to RT about Ferguson and race in America and all this kind of stuff. All these people are doing from Russia Today is fanning the flames of division. Because I'll get right back to what Igor Panarin said. He's talking about the dissolution of the United States. He talks about this every year. He's talked about this for 2010, 2011, 2012, 2013, 2014. And you also see these pastors talking about this stuff. And I'm wondering, when Americans are talking about this and they're fanning the flames and running to Russia Today, I'm wondering, who the hell are you actually with? Are you with the United States? Or are you with a foreign power that wants us to break apart so they can use us and screw us over? So I'm putting this out here as recognize the enemy. We got internal enemies in the United States, big business, the oil industries, and all this other garbage. And we also got external enemies like Russia Today and the government of Russia, not the Russian people. But also, I just want to call something else. I did this a while ago. Not a lot of hits, too, either. It's from, more than 2.5 years ago. Hemp oil and the Shrewd games of the insider establishment. Now, I talked about this before about hemp oil as a cure for cancer. Also, that it was something that could be used to replace plastics, pharmaceuticals. Also, something that could be used for fuel. It produces 10 times the amount of fuel that than corn does. But you know what? Neither the oil barons in the United States nor Vladimir Putin himself will encourage the growth of industrial hemp. They're all in it together. I've mentioned this many times. They're all the insider elite. And what they do is they play the population against each other. Also put out that the Rockefellers were the ones behind the draconian drug laws that even the cops were against. Even, the thing is with cops, the one thing that bugs me with cops the most is when you're never going to have 100% good cops. And I know in reality, it's a mixed bag. I mean, I'm not that stupid to realize that, the cops are good, It's a mixed bag. Now, the problem is, I always see with cops, though, is that when one of them does something wrong, it's like they close ranks. That's what bugs me the most about this crap, instead of cleaning it up. Instead of cleaning up their ranks, they close ranks. That's the one thing that bugs me the most about with cops, to tell you the truth. That's just my opinion on a deal, because, human nature, there's always going to be something bad. But if they don't close the ranks and they freaking get the garbage out, it'll make the whole thing work a lot better. But that's not how it works. But the thing is, even the police, back at this time when the draconian Rockefeller anti-drug laws were passed, the police were against what was going on, because they say it put somebody that did a minor drug offense on par with a murderer. So guess what they did? They imprisoned him basically as a slave to make money for the private prison corporations. So in the United States, we don't have slavery, but then again, we do in a different way, not directly. That's a problem. And you know what it is? It's called financial incentive. Financial incentive. But the thing is, what I'm pointing out here is, we got enemies both internal and external, and part of our external enemies are coming right from this big red area over here, Russia itself, because what their game is to divide us and conquer. That's what their game is. It's always been that game. This guy is going to be putting his guard. This is a constant stream from Russia Today all the time. Igor Panarin, I just use it. You probably never heard of him, but he's always putting out that the USA, Obama's going to declare martial law. You see this all the time on, the alternative media, quote unquote. Now, maybe I'm alternative media, and I don't like Obama. I think Obama is like projecting weakness for the United States. Even when he just allowed millions of illegals and gave them amnesty or whatever the hell it is by executive order. He overstepped his constitutional authority. But the thing is, how the hell is the when you bring in people in the United States, man, it's got to be something that's going to help the United States. You can't bring in a whole bunch of people, because we don't even have enough money to help the people we got over here as it is. So how the hell are we going to bring in 5 million more, Obama? I'm telling you right now, what they're doing with this stuff, with opening up the borders, is they're dissolving the nationalism of the United States. They're actually dissolving the country. That's another elitist plan. It's not all Russia doing it. Actually, the West and Russia work together. I did so many videos on this kind of garbage. But some of the stupidest things get the most attention. That's the thing, So, but anyway, count your blessings on this oil going down, but I don't think that's going to last very long. I think, though, when oil goes up, it's going to be an unexpected spike. It's also going to contribute to a lot more tensions in the United States, because people aren't going to have as much money. And what's going to happen then, there's going to be, in other words, economics actually brings about division in the United States. If the economy's doing good, everybody pretty much is far more tolerant than everybody else and anything that's going on in the world, because they're thinking, hey, my little world is fine. So when crude oil drops like this, it's actually a pretty good thing, right? But the problem is, I don't think it's going to stay that way. I mentioned that the 50th most wealthy guy in the world, Harold Hamm. Now, this guy, Harold Hamm, he's not somebody that came from, I don't know if I'm saying it right, H-A-M-M. It's Hamm or Ham. I'm not sure how you say his name. But he came from a dirt poor background. He made all his money just by getting in the oil industry. He's a CEO of Continental Shale Oil in the USA. You know, he was from a dirt poor background, very big family, started pumping gas. I mean, that was like his first job. So he had no connections. But he thinks that oil is going up because he sold off all his short position in oil about a month ago. And here it went down even more. That short position would have been more. So, but I think basically he's right, because I can't see the demand going down, especially when you're talking about the North Pole of the Earth is probably moving in a direction more where the population is. We're getting more to the northern vortex of cold air coming down. So that's going to put so much pressure on the demand for oil that I can't see it staying down. I mean, people got to heat their houses and stuff. If it's cold up in the North Pole where hardly nobody lives, or way up north in northern Canada or northern Russia, but if that cold air comes down into the populated area where tens or hundreds of millions of people live, it's going to create a lot more demand for oil. So I can't see it lasting as a trend. But I just want to tell you, though, that we're getting played different ways. We got the big corporations in America out to screw people. We got opportunists like Jesse Jackson. I don't know how this guy makes money, man. He's hooked up with the elite somehow, I think. And Russia Today is a foreign power. Basically, it's funded by it's wholly funded by the Kremlin, and they look to fan the flames of division. Actually, the biggest thing that probably solved the problem in the United States is this industrial hemp. But they set people upon each other. They set the religious right against the people that are for hemp, and they set, I don't know, they got conservatives and liberals. Everybody ought to be jumping on this opportunity. Hemp oil industrial hemp is one of the things that could save this nation. It's one of the things that George Washington himself said was a very, very important plant that everybody should cultivate. And it's an economic opportunity for everybody, because anybody can freaking grow industrial hemp. But the Rockefellers were behind the draconian laws to make even, industrial hemp is not even a drug in the least, but the Rockefellers are behind the draconian laws to put as many people in prison as possible. Why? So they can make more money. I mean, yeah, the USA isn't freaking perfect. I know it. It's screwed up in a lot of ways, too. I'm against this kind of crap. But I sure as hell am not running to, Russia Today to tell me, how bad the United States is, because these guys are some of the biggest hypocrites in the world. They're coming across like, I don't know. I don't even know how much money Reverend Jesse Jackson has. He probably is loaded. But, you look at what's going on even in Russia. This is one of the most racist states in the freaking countries in the world against blacks. And here you got the state of Russia through the Kremlin and Russia Today coming over to the United States, pushing all these stories to freaking get people riled up as much as possible. For what? Because they want the United States to break up. Igor Panarin is telling you this type of stuff. You got this yo-yo here, this other guy, Leonid Fendon. He's jumping for joy. Oh, yeah, the U.S. oil industry is going to collapse. Because the Russia's going to collapse first, you dumb shit. We already know that. Well, I don't know if they will or not, because I think that the markets, the equities markets in the United States are actually way too high. And even the major media is saying that we're going to see a correction. But I'm not going to be jumping up and down for like, oh boy, the USA is having a problem like the alternative media does. I can't believe these guys. I don't know, what are they? Are they alternative media bringing you news sources that the new major media doesn't? Or are they just cheerleaders for the Kremlin? The cheerleaders for the Kremlin in the downfall of the United States. I'm definitely not on a page with those yo-yos at all. I can tell you that right now. But, the one thing that tells me that the markets will correct is if there is such a strong industrial basis and productivity and GDP is actually coming from all this demand for consumer goods and services, there'd be a lot more demand on oil, and the oil wouldn't be going down at this price. It's actually the markets are being held up by the central bank spending. So they're going to come down. A lot of people are going to feel the pinch. Oil's probably going to go. It's just going to be an inverse, and I hate to see. I'm putting this out because this video is not going to get a lot of attention. I know it, but I know it's going to happen. These guys from Russia today are going to be pushing as much propaganda as they possibly can to divide and conquer the USA. That's what's going to happen through any angle they possibly can. So anyway, I just want to put this out that let's just give some thanks and work together against a common enemy. Common enemies are both internal and external. Both internal and external. Internal enemy is people who run these private prisons. It's all hooked in with the industrial complex. I mean, these draconian weed laws are a bunch of bullshit. They ought to throw them out the freaking window. It's ridiculous. And just for the record, just for your information, I don't even smoke any weed or do any drugs, and I never have. I don't even drink. I don't smoke cigarettes. Nothing. I'm against this kind of stuff for the freaking slamming people for a little bullshit. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. So anyway, just want to put this out here that, we give thanks to, working together. Not so much that it's going to be a flag waving thing here, but I'm talking about we got the tools to fix things as long as we are not fooled. And that's the same thing. Meet the new boss worse than the old boss. And it's like, the alternative media is basically not me. Not me. Maybe I'm alternative, but I'm not in their alternative. I'm the alternative, I guess. But the point is, they're fanning the flames of division in the United States to break us up. And I'm like, the hell with that shit. The hell with that shit. I think America should be for Americans, and we don't need 50 million more people coming in here to burden the system too much, because there's a legislative way to do things, and there's the unlegislative way to do things, which is by executive decree by King Obama. That guy's not a king, man. And it's like when he freaking puts 5 more million people in his country, he's taken away from 5 million people that have some real needs that the government or somebody or some corporations or something or some industries could work with, and we can all work together for more productivity. But, just for him to freaking wave the magic wand and say, here, come in here, and, a country that's already overburdened with debt, that we're going to be able to assimilate all this all at once. Well, that's the game, actually. The game is to actually break up the United States. It's probably Obama's in with this garbage, too. He probably is. He probably is. He's working with the elite. If he wasn't working with the elite, he wouldn't have been president for freaking 8 years. Don't freaking think that anybody is not a president. I don't care if it's Obama, Bush, Clinton, Carter. I don't give a damn. They select them, but the insiders select them. And when they do stuff as president, it's all per policy of the insiders. We got to be smarter than that. And we got to be smarter enough not to go to Russia and look for help, because these guys ain't going to help us. They're worse than the common threat that we have here in the United States as it is. So anyway, I just want to put this out here. I know it's maybe a poor Thanksgiving message, but it's not such a happy thing. But I just I want people to recognize the real problems that are going on, and let's fight the power together. Let's really fight the power together. It's a bunch of garbage, man. I'm against a lot of this shit too, man. Big time. Big time. Over and out.